homage to Shakyamuni Buddha, Manjushri, and the compassionate lineage masters. The profound Dharma is difficult to encounter. Now that I can see, hear, receive, and uphold it, may I truly understand the Tathagata's genuine meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings, please let us give rise to the Supreme Bodhicitta. Next, we will now discuss in detail the second important chapter of the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. Last year, we thoroughly covered the very first lesson. Today we will diligently continue our progress from that point. This time, in teaching the Platform Sutra, to be honest, I personally do not have a formal lineage transmission. Ideally, when teaching any Dharma, it is best to have a lineage transmission oneself. However, for this class that I am teaching now, it can be considered more as a study session rather than a formal transmission. If it were a true transmission, it would be best to have an authentic lineage. So, what is the purpose of our collective study this time? Because the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch is held in very high regard within Chinese Buddhism. Moreover, much of the profound and insightful language contained within this work is truly the eloquent and masterful language of great, highly accomplished masters. If we understand it, we can actually attain enlightenment from it and recognize the nature of the mind. There are many compelling reasons why it is necessary. So we plan to use this particular class for that specific purpose. This year, my main course may be the Ornament of Clear Realization after some time. I have already discussed this with everyone before. Among the 5 treatises of Maitreya, the Ornament of Clear Realization is a very profound Dharma teaching. I'm not sure how long this will take to teach. As long as there are no special obstacles, I hope to complete the teaching thoroughly. In fact, having made such a vow in the past, many teachings have been brought to a good beginning and end. I also hope that the Dharma protectors and all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will bless us. This is my aspiration for this year. This time, as we study the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, the main point is for everyone to understand the second chapter, the chapter on wisdom, which is about the principle of prajna, emptiness. It is discerned using the wisdom of enlightenment from Chinese Buddhism. Just like the great Indian masters, Shantideva, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, Chandrakirti, and Aryadeva, their enlightened Madhyamaka philosophy and prajna wisdom, we have also studied these teachings before. We can also come to fully understand and deeply comprehend what significant differences and subtle distinctions there truly are in this particular regard. In this profound teaching of the Platform Sutra, I also want to strongly emphasize to absolutely everyone present that every single time we attend a class or a session, in fact, this is the most important thing in our lives. Nowadays, some individuals in China often do not place much importance on attending teachings or practicing cultivation. Instead, they pay particular attention to fortune-telling, seeking out deities, and various kinds of folk practices. Of course, we do not entirely deny or consider all of these to be unreasonable, but it is best for us to truly understand the Dharma ourselves. This is very important to understand. On the surface, after carefully listening to this particular class, it may initially seem that some of you, perhaps many of you, have already attended various teachers' lectures in the secular world since your early childhood years. So listening to teachings might also seem like a teacher giving you a political science class or a physics lesson. You might think the value is the same, but in fact it is completely different. The Dharma possesses an inconceivable blessing and power. This is something we can truly discover for ourselves. Nowadays, in daily life, there are so many people who, after studying the Dharma, have changed their lives and alleviated their suffering. Such people are everywhere. Personally, after practicing for so many years, my practice is actually quite lacking. But when it comes to listening and contemplating the teachings, compared to some people nowadays who are always chasing after novelty and abandoning the old, I can say that over all these years, I've never given it up. If I were to give it up and not teach a single class, no one would punish me for it. But I still have this sense of joy and faith. As long as I can listen to even one class a day, or teach one class to others, I feel very grounded in my heart and feel that life is meaningful. If there is ever a day when I haven't attended a class or taught a class to others, I feel like I'm wasting my life, I really have this feeling. So I also hope that many people won't just have a burst of enthusiasm for 2 or 3 days at the beginning and then it's over. A lot of people are like this. Right now, my biggest disappointment with many practitioners is exactly this. At first, they have incredible faith and are willing to give up anything to listen to the teachings. Gradually, from their attitude and their behavior, you can sense that they become especially indifferent to the Dharma and lose their faith. If someone has no interest in listening to or practicing the teachings, then all of their actions behind the scenes go without saying. You can completely deduce what they're like. So I think as ordinary people, it's truly difficult for our minds to merge with wisdom. But as long as our actions, like attending classes and so on, are consistent, then even in this very life, it is meaningful. And for future lives, truly the merit of hearing the Dharma is inconceivable. I once read the transmission of the causes and conditions of the Dharma treasury, and there is a story in it. I think many of us should really remember it. So, what profound message does this ancient story convey? In a certain bustling city there resided a Brahmin, a man of considerable learning, and often engaged in the peculiar trade of selling human skulls. He would frequently journey to various towns and cities, diligently making his rounds and vociferously proclaiming to everyone he encountered, "Come, buy my skulls, my finely crafted skull caps." Despite his persistent efforts and loud solicitations, not a single person showed any interest in purchasing them. Indeed, absolutely no one desired to acquire such unusual wares. So then he started threatening them. Actually, a lot of people nowadays also like to threaten others. Sometimes it might work, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily work very well. Whether for yourself or for others, it's the same for everyone. He said, "If you don't buy my skulls, in the future I will go to every city and speak badly about you. I will say that everyone in your city is especially foolish," and that's what I'll say. Later, a male lay practitioner heard this and his threat actually worked. He thought, oh no, if this person goes around saying such things, of course he has no reason to do so. But if he really goes everywhere saying this, it would indeed be bad for our city. So simply for the sake of our city's reputation not being slandered, he decided to go and see, to buy his skull, and went to negotiate the price. When negotiating, there were so many skulls. Some were extremely expensive, while others were very cheap. He asked, "Why is there such a significant difference?" The seller, who had been present earlier, then carefully took a thin, flexible copper wire and meticulously started threading it through the small, intricate hole located in the ear area of the ancient skull. If he could successfully thread the delicate wire through both ear holes, passing cleanly from one side to the other, that particular skull was considered especially valuable and therefore exceptionally expensive. If it only went through one hole, it was mid-priced. If it couldn't go through at all, it was very cheap. This person found it a bit strange. Why was there such a big difference? He said if this person had truly listened to and deeply understood the profound teachings of the Buddha during their entire lifetime, then the delicate wire would effortlessly and completely pass through both ear holes, indicating a perfect and unobstructed reception of spiritual wisdom. They had not only listened to the teachings but also reflected on them. The skull would be very expensive. If it only went through one ear, it meant the person had heard the teachings but never reflected on them. If the wire couldn't go through even one hole, it meant this person had never heard the Buddha's teachings. That's the reason why their values were different. Later, this layman bought the best skull. He thought that after all, this person must have listened to the Buddha's teachings during their lifetime. He must have been a truly remarkable individual. He carefully took the sacred skull to a certain significant place, where he then diligently built a revered stupa, a monument of great spiritual importance, and reverently made numerous offerings to it. As a direct and profound result of this accumulated merit, he was gloriously reborn in the blissful heavenly realms. The Buddha said in this profound sutra that this person, with great devotion, built a stupa and made offerings to the sacred skull of someone who had diligently listened to the Dharma. If such a great merit can lead to a favorable rebirth in a good realm in the heavenly realms, then consider the immense potential. If we ourselves listen to the Dharma willingly and with respect for the Dharma teacher, the merit is even greater. It's truly inconceivable. We also know this from before, as mentioned in the Maitreya's Question Sutra and so on. The merits of both the one who teaches the Dharma and the one who listens to the Dharma are truly inconceivable. For example, if we slander someone, of course there is fault in slandering an ordinary person, but if that person is a Dharma teacher, a Dharma master, then the fault of slandering them is even more serious and frightening. For those who have listened to the Dharma, even their clothes, hair, nails, and even the dust they step on with their feet, there are thousands upon thousands of devas and non-human beings making offerings and prostrating to them. Therefore, when we listen to the Dharma, we must never treat it as just an ordinary worldly lesson. When I visit some schools, they treat it as a kind of academic subject. This is also understandable, because the environment they are in and the education they have received are like this. If they have at least this kind of understanding, I think that's already not bad. But for those of us who have truly received professional Dharma training or education, we have heard what the Dharma truly is, and the precious Guru has often spoken about this as well. For example, in any place where someone genuinely teaches the Dharma with an altruistic mind, if a Dharma teacher resides there and becomes the so-called spiritual leader of that place, he can be regarded as a worthy recipient of offerings from both humans and devas. Therefore, for all of us present, being a Dharma teacher is truly important. But precisely because being a Dharma teacher is so important, everyone thinks. Nowadays, some people are especially bold and think they are proficient in everything themselves. But what they teach does not conform to the meaning of the scriptures, nor does it align with the lineage. Yesterday, I saw the Dharma teachers saying that tutors and Dharma teachers should act according to the Guru's instructions. I think this is necessary, to be honest. Nowadays, many people are like this. For example, there are a few individuals in our study group who neither listen to the recordings nor reflect on them themselves. They just share their own confused and deluded thoughts with everyone. This has no value whatsoever. So now our teaching and research group is also conducting exams in various places. During the examination process, we have discovered that their previous studies were entirely superficial. Now, some of the Dharma teachers here are able to identify how they used to study in the past. I have also encountered many such people outside. Some people feel they've gained a lot, while others say the pressure is too much, so they quit. A lot of people have quit. I looked at our list the other day. At first, many people sign up right away without much thought. Wow, something new, and they immediately register. But after a while, as soon as there's a bit of pressure, they start dropping out. So now you can really see people's words and actions for what they are. There was an entrepreneur who said, if you want to know what people are thinking these days, just watch more movies. I don't think you need to watch movies, just look at people's mindsets. We should already know what people are thinking and doing these days. So I think that when we hear the Dharma, I hope everyone can develop a more stable and mature character. Only then can you continue learning. If you're not steady, then even the so-called Dharma, at first you might feel like you've gained something from listening to it, but your own virtuous connections from past lives may not be sufficient. And on top of that, you may have a lot of wrong views and misconceptions in your mind stream. Now, some lay people among us, it seems that studying the Dharma hasn't really become a supportive condition for them. Instead, studying the Dharma actually increases their discriminating thoughts. They focus on the faults of monastics, all sorts of things. They spend all day talking about other people's faults, which is especially frightening. Actually, whatever mistakes or faults others may have, if your own practice is good, it won't become an obstacle for you. Patrul Rinpoche also talked about this in The Words of My Perfect Teacher. Even if others have faults, if your own practice is good, the faults of others won't affect you. So, if your mind is not pure, even if Shakyamuni Buddha himself appeared before you, just like Devadatta in the past, you would still see all sorts of faults. That's why sometimes when we look at some people who are studying Buddhism nowadays, indeed from top to bottom, I often read the Song of the Path of Renunciation by the great master Longchenpa. When I read it, I feel that it's truly accurate. He described everything exactly as it is. Longchenpa lived more than 600 years ago from now. Was it like this back then? But now it's true that many people's mindsets and afflictions and all kinds of suffering are already clearly described in these teachings. But just because they have these faults, does that mean we shouldn't teach the Dharma? When we encounter such situations, it's impossible to just give up on everything. We should do as much as we can and reach as many people as possible. But this approach, I think it's a reasonable way to help everyone receive a better education. Next, let's talk about spiritual friends. The deluded speak with their mouths. I'm not sure where it is or on which page, since we've paused here for quite a while. Spiritual friends. The deluded speak with their mouths, while the wise act with their hearts. There are also deluded people who sit in empty meditation, thinking of nothing at all and claim themselves to be great. Such people are not worth talking to because of their wrong views. Spiritual friends is a form of address the Sixth Patriarch uses for those present. All of you spiritual friends should listen carefully. What should you listen to? In this world, there are confused people who only talk on the surface, but in reality, they have no true awakening, realization, or understanding in their hearts. But a truly wise person not only speaks with his mouth, but also puts into practice in his heart everything he says. For example, a confused fool in the world only talks on the surface, saying things like benefiting all beings, all phenomena are emptiness, and so on, speaking very beautifully, but in reality, he has never truly benefited sentient beings, not even having done a single thing. He has never abided in emptiness, not even for an instant, and it is all just empty talk. But a wise person puts into practice everything he says one by one. For every principle of the Dharma, he gradually and genuinely puts it into real practice. There are also some confused, deluded people who lack wisdom, who often go into arduous retreats, forcing themselves to remain in meditation, always sitting in zazen, sitting quietly with an empty mind, thinking of nothing at all. During the process of sitting quietly during meditation, they think of nothing at all, not existence, not non-existence. They refuse to contemplate anything or become attached to anything, believing this to be a great realization. But in fact, such people have not reached a great realization, and the teachings of prajna emptiness should not be explained to them. They have already become holders of wrong views, having fallen into erroneous beliefs. I hope that those of us who study Chan Buddhism in this regard, as we have often discussed before, realize that this problem is still quite serious. Because some people, including some current Chan masters, some people often abide in a certain state, and when they hear about abiding, perhaps they feel more comfortable in their hearts. They abide in a kind of alaya consciousness, not becoming attached to anything. Even when their teachers give them guidance, they say, don't get attached to anything, just meditate like this every day and that's enough. But actually, this is a particularly serious and one could say rather frightening way of practicing. In the Miscellaneous Parables Sutra, there is also a case like this, which is quite instructive. Once when the Buddha was in Shravasti and went out to beg for alms, he saw a particularly pitiful, old and rather sad sow in a deep muddy pit. There were many small young piglets gathered all around this unfortunate sow, huddling close to her. They were all suffering in an extremely filthy pit. After seeing this, the Buddha felt great compassion and then manifested his body radiating light. At that moment, Ananda asked, the Buddha usually neither smiles nor radiates light from his body without a special reason. What is the reason today? Of course, there are various explanations for the Buddha's body emitting light. We won't elaborate on them here. At this point, the Buddha began to speak about the causes and conditions behind this. He said, this old sow is actually very pitiful. She had a certain experience in the past. Later, the disciples repeatedly requested the Buddha to explain further. The Buddha said that this old sow was once the daughter of a very wealthy family. This particular daughter was also exceptionally beautiful, possessing a truly radiant appearance, and her entire physical being was in absolutely excellent condition. From a very tender young age, she had developed a particularly strong and unwavering faith in the sacred Dharma. On one memorable occasion, she thoughtfully composed a meaningful verse specifically for herself. All things in this vast and intricate world flow like water, the profound joys and the deep sorrows of human existence. Where do they truly come from, these powerful emotions? When will they finally cease their relentless movement and find a moment of peace? She thoughtfully recited such a profound and ancient verse. She then told her parents, with a touch of genuine bewilderment, that she simply couldn't fully understand its intricate meaning, perhaps even after reciting it herself. She couldn't quite figure out its deeper implications. Actually, this profound statement mainly means that everything in the world, every event and every feeling, is like continuously flowing water, constantly moving and changing. What is the origin of all suffering and happiness, and when do they ultimately cease? So it mainly talks about emptiness, but not just simple emptiness. But her parents really had no way to answer their daughter's question. So she began to announce, "Who can answer my question?" Because their family was especially wealthy, they could offer a lot of riches. Later, a Brahmin, greedy for wealth, said, "I can answer." How did he answer? He said, the meaning of this verse is very simple. Don't be attached to anything. Just abide in this way without clinging to anything. Just abiding like this is enough. At that time, after the daughter heard this, she felt very at ease. She thought, wow, what this master said is truly correct. Then, following his teachings, she abided in a state of non-attachment. Because in non-attachment, not being attached to anything, after being attached in this way, later she was reborn in the formless realm, in the sphere of infinite consciousness, the sphere of infinite space, the sphere of nothingness, and the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. The third one, the sphere of nothingness, she was reborn there. For 40 kalpas, she remained in the formless realm. Later, when she was reborn in the desire realm, she became an old sow. There may have been some prior process before this particular event. The Buddha stated that at that specific time, she did not truly encounter a genuinely enlightened teacher. Instead, she met such a spiritual guru, such a Brahmin. Because of his guidance, she wasted so much time. And now she has also become an animal. If she had encountered a truly enlightened being or a qualified Dharma teacher at that time, she would have attained liberation long ago. So it is indeed extremely important for us to meet a qualified guru now. At the very least, the guru can teach disciples the path to liberation, and he himself is also knowledgeable in this regard. In modern terms, he has received systematic education. Otherwise, you see, when that Brahmin was guiding her, in fact, he didn't understand at all. Actually, the meaning of this verse is that it teaches both emptiness and impermanence. That's the principle here. If she had truly met a genuine teacher who explained things to her properly, she would have attained liberation long ago. Some people say, it doesn't matter whether you meet a guru or not, but actually it's not the same at all. If you meet a good guru, he can help you attain liberation. So right now, not everything is the same. You can't generalize. You can see this from this case story. Nowadays, some teachings say you shouldn't be attached to anything at all. Even the guru tells you to contemplate emptiness, not to be attached to anything, just sit there like that. Disciples might often find themselves, as we mentioned before, in Guru Rinpoche's direct pointing to the nature of mind commentary. It mainly discusses the difference between alaya and alaya vijnana. Whether it's alaya or alaya vijnana, when you abide in them, abiding in this way feels very comfortable. Just now, this woman might have felt very comfortable, always abiding like this. But this kind of meditation is not a very high level. Blindly practicing the Heishang school's method of non-thought, simply abiding without investigation, lacks the clarity of superior insight, like a stone sinking into the sea, dwelling in mediocrity. It's just like a heavy stone sinking into the vast sea, abiding in profound mediocrity. In the Heishang school, you don't actively think about anything, don't meticulously investigate, just simply abide directly. But in reality, there is often no genuine clarity of investigation, no true clarity of wisdom. Simply abiding in this kind of calmness is like throwing a stone into the sea. There is no progress at all. This kind of state is not very reliable. So during our practice, some people may waste a lot of time. They think they are practicing very well, but in reality, they are just cultivating the cause for the formless realm. As in the case we mentioned earlier, from the Miscellaneous Parables Sutra, it talks about the cause of becoming an old sow. On the surface, it seems like one is always in meditation and practicing, but if it actually turns out like this, it is quite frightening. Therefore, everyone here needs to make choices during the process of practice. Otherwise, some people nowadays start without a proper foundation of study. During their practice, they often think to themselves, for example, when attending a class, some people just sit there like this the whole time. But when listening to a teaching, your ears must truly receive the Dharma words. You need to listen and take in every word in your heart. Even reciting is not allowed for the time being. Body, speech, and mind all need to be focused. This should be a way of concentrating all three gates. But some people have studied a bit of Zen before. Often when they're attending a lecture, I actually dislike it when people meditate during class. In the case, there's no need to come to class just to go into retreat. This is falling into wrong views. Of course, at the very beginning, we also need to make some important distinctions here. Actually, is all settling of the mind truly unreasonable? Not really. The Beacon of Certainty also discusses this. At first, when breaking attachment to the self, although we may discern a kind of mere emptiness, we also discern that all phenomena are empty in nature. But you cannot take the emptiness of all phenomena or dwelling in such a state of nothingness, treat it as the ultimate reality, practicing like this continuously. In the end, this kind of meditative absorption can become the cause for your future rebirth. So this is not allowed. Temporarily, in the generation stage and in some tantric practices, one may abide a little in the emptiness of all phenomena and then practice the seed syllable, radiance, and deity visualization. These methods all exist, but this is not contradictory. Therefore, for long-term abiding, there must be a discerning clarity of superior insight. This is the meaning in Mipham Rinpoche's Beacon of Certainty. The reason for practicing both shamatha and vipassana together is also like this. Everyone should understand this aspect. Otherwise, I am quite concerned about many people nowadays. Here, those who practice meditation, including some tantric practices, if they do not have the genuine guidance of a teacher, many people think, there are many who say this, that in the morning they just sit and meditate. But what kind of meditation are they actually doing? They themselves have never recognized the nature of mind before. And they also haven't understood some of the key instructions or principles in this regard. Every morning and throughout their entire lives, they just keep practicing and practicing like this. Whether or not they can attain liberation this way is hard to say. It is necessary for the mind to abide in calmness. This kind of shamatha is important, but merely abiding is not enough. One needs to recognize its true nature. This may involve some aspects of tantric practice. Here, I just want to remind everyone, see how your own practice is going in this regard. Good friends, the mind is vast and expansive, pervading the entire Dharma realm. When put to use, it is clear and distinct. In application, it knows all things. All is one, and one is all. Coming and going are free and unimpeded. When the mind is unobstructed in its essence, that is prajna, wisdom. Next it says, good friends, the capacity of our mind, the capacity of sentient beings' minds is as vast as space, as immense as the ocean. Moreover, the ocean and space can only pervade a portion, but the mind can pervade the entire Dharma realm. In Chan Buddhism, the mind is often discussed in terms of its essence and its function. Function is similar to the conventional truth in Madhyamaka, its wondrous function, marvelous power, and so on. Essence refers to its fundamental nature, the ineffable aspect that cannot be described in words. As for its function, the mind can encompass all things and phenomena. In its manifestation from the perspective of function, it is clear and distinct. In application, it can know all things. Then, speaking from the aspect of the mind's essence, in fact, all worldly phenomena are unified within the essence. Everything becomes one, and the one becomes everything. This is the principle of form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. At this point, there is complete freedom of coming and going. The essence of mind is without any obstruction. Perhaps those who have some understanding of the true nature of their own mind will comprehend this. From the aspect of the mind's luminosity, it is utterly clear and distinct. Everything, all phenomena. It's not like the empty, hollow void of space. Venerable Longchenpa, in Finding Comfort and Ease in the Nature of Mind, explained this especially clearly. From the perspective of its essence, the luminous aspect that is manifesting right now, there is nothing to be realized. Not even a speck of dust, not the slightest obstruction exists. We can discuss this in terms of ultimate reality. For example, in the conventional world, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or east, south, west, north, up, down, and so on, all kinds of distinctions. But in reality, at the level of its essence, everything is completely integrated as one. The one is all and all is the one. This is often stated in many places in the Avatamsaka Sutra as well. As it says in the Treasure Treatise, for example, if 1,000 waves arise in the ocean, those 1,000 waves are actually the ocean itself. The 1,000 waves are in fact the ocean, and the ocean is in fact the 1,000 waves. Therefore, all is one with no difference at all. This means that the ocean and its waves are of the same nature, one and inseparable. In the same way, the one and the many in this world are also of the same nature, one and inseparable. I once had a book called 100 Scriptural Proofs. In 100 Scriptural Proofs, I remember there was one that said, "The one is all and all is the one." At that time, there didn't seem to be many people at our institute. There were about 20 Han Chinese. There was a lay practitioner who felt especially conflicted about this, so he came to see me specifically. At that time, my courtyard didn't even have a door, so he came over and I explained it to him once. But he wasn't convinced, and after a while he came back again. He said, "That's impossible. One means one and all means many. Many can't be one and one can't be many." Later, we discussed it from the perspective of the true nature of things. We said, for example, a bottle in our ordinary discriminating mind, a bottle is one, but what we call one is actually not truly one, because the oneness of a bottle is made up of countless tiny particles. So this so-called one is actually just a conceptual designation. The oneness of a bottle is in fact everything, and everything is also one. If we reason this way, then the true nature of one and all, we can also say that many is one and one is many. Stating it like this is actually completely reasonable. We can understand it. In Chan Buddhism, there is a special teaching about recognizing the true self, the real me. It's not the truly existent self that we currently believe in. At that time, the true self, the true Tathagata, can be completely understood. There are also such stories in the history of Chan Buddhism. There was a Chan master, I forget which era he was from. Chan Master Vugen often entered deep meditation. Once, during one of his meditative states, others thought he had died, as he did not come out of meditation for 3 days. Believing he was dead, others had already taken care of his remains. When the master came out of meditation, his body had already been disposed of. It was gone. He was extremely saddened and began to wander, just like the ghosts and spirits of this world. Especially at night, he would cry out, "Where am I? Where am I?" This voice could be heard everywhere. Everyone in the entire monastery was extremely tense and very frightened. Later, a revered and wise monk named Master Miao Kong thoughtfully said, "I will indeed go to Master Vugen's serene meditation room and patiently wait there throughout the entire night until the morning light breaks." So he stayed there that night. In the middle of the night, the voice was heard again, "Where am I? Where am I?" At that moment, Master Miao Kong said, "You are in the earth." His consciousness burrowed into the earth to search, but he said, "I couldn't find myself in the earth." Then he said, "You are in the void." He went to search in the void, but still couldn't find himself. Then he said, "You are in the water." He searched in the water, but couldn't find himself there either. He said, "You are in the fire." He went into the blazing fire, but still couldn't find himself. Later he said, if you can't find it, that is your true self." At this moment, Master Vugen, through this state of consciousness, said, "Actually, my attachment to the body was never really me. Now I have finally found my true self. This is the true Dharma body. This is the real me." Of course, there are many wonderful stories like this in Chan Buddhism. Even I, sometimes, I genuinely don't know if it was the high altitude sickness or perhaps something entirely different that affected me yesterday, but I simply couldn't manage to fall asleep at all, no matter what methods or techniques I diligently tried. Later, I thought to myself, where exactly am I? Can I settle my mind? This method actually worked very well, and I eventually fell asleep. Try to let all those various discriminating thoughts subside completely first. Once they've subsided, rest in a state where luminosity and emptiness are inseparable. When discriminating thoughts arise again, just gently bring your mind back. Afterwards, I felt quite comfortable, and as I continued like this, I gradually fell asleep. This is a very personal and highly effective tip, a clever trick for those challenging times when you simply cannot fall asleep. However, it's important to note that this versatile method can also be successfully applied in numerous other areas of life, extending beyond just sleep difficulties. Good friends, all prajna wisdom arises from one's own true nature. It does not come from outside of oneself. Do not misdirect your precious efforts. This is truly called the true nature acting of itself. When one is truly authentic, all is true. The mind should be broad and focused on great and significant matters, not walk petty, insignificant paths. Do not spend all day speaking of emptiness with your mouth while failing to genuinely practice it in your heart. That is like an ordinary person calling himself a king. He will never truly attain it. Such a person is not my disciple. Now, let me explain this further. Good friends, all prajna wisdom arises from one's own inherent nature. It does not come from outside. It does not enter from the outside, so do not seek outwardly. Do not misapply your intention. This is the true meaning of the true nature functioning on its own. In other words, true suchness, the true nature of Dharma, if you attain enlightenment. It is not something external that exists. Of course, in the provisional teachings, when we talk about the great illusory net, in fact, the great illusory net and Chan Buddhism can be referenced against each other in many aspects. If one fully understands the great illusory net, some of the principles in Chan Buddhism may become easier to explain. The so-called prajna wisdom is not found in external things, but in recognizing the true nature of one's own mind. This true nature of mind is, in fact, the wisdom of the Buddha. This Buddha wisdom can pervade every sentient being. It seems that the Avatamsaka Sutra also discusses this. Buddha wisdom is also like this. It pervades the minds of all sentient beings, but is entangled by deluded thoughts, so it is neither realized nor known. Although Buddha wisdom pervades each and every one of us, because our minds are bound by deluded thoughts and discriminations, we have never realized it. That is why we are always seeking outwardly. But in fact, seeking outwardly is not ideal. For true practitioners, one should seek inwardly. What does it mean to seek inwardly? It means to observe oneself. As I mentioned before class, there are many practitioners who are always pointing fingers at others, saying, this is a fault, that is a fault. This is not in accordance with the Dharma. That is not in accordance with the Dharma. In fact, people who are always looking for faults in others usually have very poor inner cultivation themselves. Over the long course of practice, this becomes quite apparent. Whether it is oneself or others, if you are always looking for faults in others, in many aspects externally, then your own personal practice is very poor indeed. The truly great monks and accomplished practitioners throughout history, their profound realizations have all come from a deep understanding of their own minds. It is in the continuous process of self-reflection that the fog of confusion is gradually dispelled. If one thing is true, all is true. With a vast mind, one does not walk petty paths. If one thing has already become genuine, then everything else. For example, if you have completely understood the true nature of the mind and attained enlightenment, at that time, everything, absolutely everything, can be fully comprehended. If you have already realized the true nature of the mind, it is like what is explained in Madhyamaka. If you know that one hole is empty, then by analogy you can understand that all holes are empty as well. If your own mind is already understood to be the inseparability of appearance and emptiness, then all phenomena in the world outside the mind, such as pillars, bottles, and so on, are also all inseparable from appearance and emptiness. If one is true, all are true. At that particular time, our expansive mind will truly be able to skillfully handle and manage great and significant matters, and consequently, it will not be overly concerned with trivialities or insignificant details. Right now, for many ordinary people, our minds are unfortunately not broad enough, not sufficiently expansive, and certainly not big enough to encompass everything. We often, far too frequently, get troubled and deeply bothered by even the smallest, most minor things, allowing them to disrupt our peace and focus. A couple of days ago, while I was riding in a car, I reflected on this myself and felt that, for example, in my mind, this matter feels very significant. But from the perspective of a sage, if they were to observe my mind using their clairvoyance, they would find it quite laughable, because to me this matter seems very important, whether it will succeed, whether it will be perfect, whether it will turn out well. Or when I encounter suffering, I wonder what to do. It's so painful. To me, I am truly attached to this. Whether it's suffering or happiness, I am especially attached to it. But as a sage, It's like a child in the world who is heartbroken over his toy. And while he's crying, an elderly person is watching nearby, thinking, oh, this child, I understand. I understand. He's so attached to his toy. That's just how it is. Similarly, for example, if I learn that my father at home has passed away, I become extremely, extremely sad, sobbing and lamenting. What am I going to do? If a sage's father at home passes away, would he? The same thing might happen, but in reality, his attachment and state of mind are completely different. So when we measure our minds, from the perspective of emptiness, we should distance ourselves from all conceptual elaborations of emptiness. Don't become attached to a single emptiness, a single point. That's not right. If we speak from the perspective of appearances, when our minds are attached, we should benefit all sentient beings. We should try our best to expand and broaden our scope, including when we discuss things. Some people are always talking about how much cabbage costs, how much fried dough twists cost, how much a pound of salt costs. So what should we do about this? I have 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents now. They keep getting especially attached to these matters. But some things aren't necessarily like that, no matter what you talk about, what you often think about in your heart. Some people, when they think in their hearts, only consider spiritual practice, only consider benefiting sentient beings. As for other things, like some aspects of our personal lives, personal belongings, including clothing and food, basically, as long as a person can maintain their life, that's enough. Other than that, they don't pay much attention to it. So there's a big difference between sages and ordinary people. Sages pay special attention to things that are valuable, while things that have no value are not something sages will pay attention to. But we ordinary people pay special attention to things that have no value, and often neglect things that are truly valuable, not caring about them. There's another even more important point. We shouldn't just talk about emptiness all the time. If you haven't practiced it in your heart and only talk about emptiness, that's unreasonable. Such a person is like an ordinary person in the world claiming to be a king. In reality, such a person cannot be called a true disciple of the Buddha or a disciple of the Sixth Patriarch. Now, when we talk about emptiness, we need to understand this. We must truly know the principle of the inseparability of appearance and emptiness and practice it. If you don't practice it, nowadays people are always talking about it. There used to be a saying, talking about food and counting treasures. They only talk about it verbally without truly understanding it at all. Just talking about it is useless. But some people often say, oh, this is emptiness, don't get attached. What are you attached to? Especially when practicing virtuous deeds. They love to use phrases like, what's the point of making offerings? What's the point of prostrations? What's the point of the 5 preliminary practices? It's all emptiness. Don't you know about contemplating emptiness? This kind of thinking is the most dangerous. Indeed, if you don't understand the principle of the ultimate and conventional truths, or emptiness and phenomena, or the accumulation of merit, then you are truly entering a wrong path. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva also said in the middle way, if one cannot distinguish between the two truths, then one does not understand the true meaning of the profound Buddha Dharma. People like this have no understanding of truly profound Buddha Dharma at all. It's especially frightening. If you truly do not fully understand the 2 fundamental truths, you will not comprehend the profound Buddha Dharma. Many of us just talk about it superficially, merely saying these things with our mouths. But in reality, that is quite useless. If after saying it you actually practice it, then even abiding in emptiness for just a single instant brings inconceivable merit and power. Because emptiness truly is the only nectar-like sublime dharma that can destroy the very root of samsara. In this degenerate age, it is indeed extremely fortunate for us to encounter such profound Buddha Dharma. It is a great honor for both ourselves and others. In such a difficult era, for us to come across these profound teachings is also extremely important. But often, including myself sitting here today teaching you all, but when I often reflect on myself, I do feel quite ashamed. Why is that? Because although I frequently teach others and I do have feelings during the process of teaching, I personally feel that the Dharma of emptiness is truly extraordinary. But afterwards, I use being busy as an excuse. And for this reason or that, I end up practicing very little myself. If I haven't practiced, to be honest, just talking about it verbally, does it have merit? We do admit that there is merit in it. But can this kind of merit completely eradicate the root of samsara? Does it have such an effect? That is very difficult. The Avatamsaka Sutra, in several versions, including the Jin translation, says, for example, a poor person counts the treasures of others day and night. Yet he himself does not possess even half a coin. So it is with those who only listen extensively. If one does not practice the Dharma, it is exactly the same as this. A poor person spends all day counting other people's wealth, just like some people working in banks nowadays whose salaries are very low. They go swish, 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 counting money all day long. But in reality, by the end of the year, they don't have much money themselves. I'm also just speaking about it verbally, talking about the root stanzas of the middle way, the 400 verses, the beacon of certainty, and so on. Many Dharma friends talk about this emptiness, that emptiness, non-attachment. But in reality, not even for an instant do we ourselves abide in such a state of emptiness. In the end, do we plant virtuous roots? We certainly do. As we mentioned earlier, listening to the Dharma truly brings inconceivable merit. But to truly eradicate samsara is indeed quite difficult. Therefore, it is also said here that we should not become someone who desperately claims to be a king, as it is ultimately meaningless. Actually, the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch is quite profound. Many of the key instructions we need to know have already been explained. But after the teaching is finished, it depends on whether everyone can apply them over the long term. It's not like we've just taken a painkiller after today's talk, and then forget it tomorrow, or it's gone tomorrow, and then we need to listen to another one again. If that's the case, then it will indeed be very difficult. I think I've mentioned this before as well. A truly superior person can benefit for a lifetime from listening to a teaching just once. When the precious guru went to Shichu, he was 18 years old. By the age of 24, the guru had already returned from Shichu Buddhist Institute. That was truly his most glorious period, which the elder often mentioned. The parade of relying on the precious Toga Rinpoche lasted only 6 years, and he was also very young at the time. The other day, I told this story at Manjushri school. When the precious guru went to Shichu, he was 18 years old. Between the ages of 18 and 24, during those 6 years, he received both exoteric and esoteric teachings and also realized the nature of his own mind. From then on, even when the elder was in his 70s, whenever he mentioned his guru's name, he would be moved to tears. Why is that? It is because he truly received the guru's mind-to-mind transmission and blessings. He actually did not rely on his guru for a very long time. In fact, many Dharma friends here among us may have listened to the Dharma in front of the precious guru or other teachers, perhaps for 6, 7, 10, 8, or even 20 years. But if we ourselves do not practice emptiness or truly contemplate it, I'm afraid that the deeply rooted afflictions in our mind streams will be very hard to eliminate. Of course, I'm not saying that everyone present here is just like the precious guru. On the surface, he appeared to be an ordinary person, but in reality, he definitely possessed profound accumulations of merit from spiritual practice in past lives. In this lifetime, just a slight manifestation on the surface might be enough. In that case, even 6 years might seem a bit long. In fact, if we really look at it according to the biography of Milarepa, although we are ordinary beings, if we are especially focused during the process of relying on a teacher and treat the Dharma we receive from our teacher as if it were gold, regarding it as the most valuable thing in our lives, and practicing like this throughout our lifetime, then, from the perspective of the Dharma, I believe it will never deceive us. This depends on ourselves. That's all for today's talk.
Bandharangara Padma Sodargye